Chapter 14, The Middle Colonies. Our big question: how did the mixing of cultures help the middle colonies grow and prosper? Different colonies. There are still four colonies to learn about: New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. These colonies are called the middle colonies. Both the southern and the New England colonies attracted colonists mostly from England and Scotland, but people from many different parts of Europe came to the middle colonies. Settlers from Germany, the Netherlands, also called Holland, and Sweden. Some of these people came for religious freedom. Some came to trade with the Native Americans. Others looked for farmland to grow crops. To get along, people in the middle colonies had to respect each other's differences. They had to respect the same religions, cultures, and languages. A mixing of cultures. Colonists from different countries brought the unique skills to the middle colonies. The Germans were very skilled farmers. The Dutch were good at building wagons and plows. The Swedes built strong log houses. The colonists taught these skills to each other. Sometimes they even shared ways to have fun. For example, the Dutch taught the other colonists about ice skating and bowling. Sharing among different peoples caused cultures to mix. This mixing of cultures helped the middle colonies grow and prosper. And the word prosper means helped the colonies become successful. Farming in the middle colonies. Like in the New England colonies, the middle colonies had large forests. The forest provided lumber for building things like houses and ships. But unlike the New England, the middle colonies were a good place to farm. The soil was rich. The climate was usually mild. Summers were warm and rainy. Many kinds of crops grew well there. The early settlers grew different kinds of fruits and vegetables. Farmers grew enough crops to feed their families. They also had enough left over to sell for a profit. And remember, from an earlier chapter, we learned that profit meant money that you make. After you have purchased everything you need to sell something, the money you make is your profit. Soon, farmers grew cash crops just to sell. The main cash crops in the middle colonies were grains such as wheat, rye, and oats. Because the middle colonies grew large amounts of grains, they were called the breadbasket colonies. After harvest, many farmers took their wheat to a miller. The miller, a person who owns a mill, would then grind the wheat into flour. Here we see a picture of after the wheat was harvested, it was brought into a mill. And this mill right here is powered by water. Now, the farmers were ready to sell their flour in markets in big port cities such as Philadelphia and New York City. But how would they get the flour there? Farmers in Pennsylvania used the Delaware River to move crops from the farms to Philadelphia. Farmers in New York used the Hudson River to move crops to markets in New York City. Both the Delaware and the Hudson Rivers are very wide and deep. This made it possible for ships to travel almost 100 miles upstream. When farmers reached Philadelphia or New York City, their flour and other crops, they sold, their flour and other crops to merchants. A merchant is a person who buys and sells things to earn money. Sometimes the merchants shipped their crops to other colonies. Other times, the merchants shipped the crops to England and other European countries. New York City and Philadelphia became centers for trade and shipping. They also became centers for the mixing of cultures. People with special skills and new ideas came to these port cities. They started schools, built libraries, and printed newspapers. Over time, different cultures, beliefs, and ideas began to create something new, an American culture. Here we have a picture of cultures blending. A lot of times when we talk about culture, we talk about food that they cook in the area they come from. So we see a group of people here sharing some different food over a picnic.